Hello, Sharks. We are here to pitch our app, Culture the Gathering. We are seeking a $50,000 investment for 25% equity in our company.
I'd like to tell you today, Sharks, about Daniel. I got to know Daniel when I worked at his middle school. When I met Daniel, he was in seventh grade. He liked art, talkies, hanging out with his friends at recess. Daniel and his brother were being raised by their father, who had immigrated from Mexico. Dad worked hard. So did Daniel. He had great attendance. But then one day, Daniel told a friend that he was planning to kill himself. You see, Daniel had told his father that he was gay, and it had not gone well. Daniel was fortunate enough to have a good friend and had told a trusted adult, and Daniel got support, but Daniel was not the only one who felt alone. When Daniel's father arrived to see his son, he brought a girly magazine along to try to fix him. Both Daniel and his father were struggling to navigate adolescence, sexuality, the mental health care system, and the education system in America, which neither of them were familiar with. We thought, how would this story have been different if Daniel and his father had had access to community support? And thus, Culture the Gathering was born.
There are so many kids that are like Daniel. The community that we wish to target with our app, Culture the Gathering, is to target the mental health of adolescents with immigrant parents. These students and adolescents are affected by needing to use their energy to maintain their mental health, using energy to adjust to majority culture, possibly learning a new language as well, and likely having lack of resources to low SCS, and adapting to changes in themselves due to puberty. Some facts about some of these adolescents is 1 in every 4 children in the United States, which is approximately 18.4 million children, live in an immigrant family. 89% of these children are born in the United States and are US citizens. Children of immigrants are nearly twice as likely to be uninsured as are children of non-immigrant families.
When looking to the underlying social conditions of our group of mental health of the adolescents ages 13 through 18, we looked at thinkglobalhealth.org, and they came up with a few different ideas that we drew from. We talked about economic underlying social conditions, including insurance and lack of resources, that families are often entering the US system without a living wage, affordable housing, or accessible health care. So mental health services are out of the question. We talked about emotional social conditions, such as children of Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Latinx immigrants have significantly higher rates of depression, anxiety, and PTSD compared to the children of white immigrants. The multifaceted identity of often having to be a caretaker and the child in a family, the passage of parental hardship from immigrants to their children that leaves them susceptible to these mental health issues. And then we talked about the social conditions, such as many of the communities being uninformed about their options, having misconceptions about the services that are available to them, having uneasiness with American healthcare, facing stigma for seeking support, along with certain communities having cultural traditions such as privacy, self-reliance, or a preference for non-Western medicine. Many of these children of immigrants feel they cannot or should not seek help, as their feelings feel very small compared to what their families have faced. And also they're facing the endless acts of discrimination that many children of immigrants have in the US. They have to adjust to the majority culture, which is another social condition. We drew from the ecological theory as we looked at these underlying conditions, as it draws from biological and environmental aspects to highlight how everything is connected.
Sharks, we have a phone preloaded with the app right here, and we'd like to offer it to you so you can give it a try while we tell you a little bit more about Culture the Gathering.
So our app Culture the Gathering is helpful for any immigrant, especially helpful for the mental health of adolescents. Our app is a place for community to share resources such as job postings, visa facts and green card facts, legal help, scholarship opportunities, mental health centers near them, and culturally responsive childcare.
We all learned through the pandemic that being able to socialize with others is an important factor in our health. We want to provide a way for marginalized groups to gather in physical spaces and have healthy interactions with one another. Our app will include cultural events, organizations, and forums happening in nearby locations so that wherever an individual is, they can find a place to connect with others.
As you can see, our app, Culture the Gathering, is also a place for our community to share connection. If the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us anything, it's that virtual gathering and virtual community is real community. Our app has a place for folks to share personal stories of their personal immigrant experiences, places for people to share their stories about their lives in every way, and message boards for community members to be in community with one another.
So it seems that your community and focus is built up of individuals from all different backgrounds. So, how are you going to build a community out of groups that seem to have nothing in common and are from all different places?
Yes, that is a great question. In a study done in Brooklyn about exploring social media and community development, they found that social media is already a common resource for community development. Most communities are built up of people that only seem to have in common the city or neighborhood that they live in. And when connecting through social media, they find several commonalities amongst the community. So by using locality development, our app will provide a space to meet and connect where otherwise there wouldn't be a physical space to meet and connect. And anyone who identifies as living in an immigrant home will have that commonality.
This is a very interesting app, but you need to realize that here in the Shark Tank, we have the power. An important part of working with underprivileged communities is understanding the role that power plays in that community. Tell us more about this power dynamic.
Yes, so as we worked on our app, we saw that there were many power dynamics in this community. We saw that these power dynamics through the lens of Power Cube have forms, spaces, and levels in which power manifests and exists. So those who hold the power include schools, government, social workers, parent groups, and community organizations. These places and people on the Power Cube are local, closed, and hidden, as they make the majority of the decisions for this group. Those who have the least power are students, teachers, and parents individually. We lack resources in this area, such as English learning services, mental health resources, affordable health insurance, employment, and education. And on the outside of community boundaries, the US Citizenship and Immigration Services, along with governments that are from the countries of origins of these communities, would have an impact on this. Here we see levels of national and global dimensions from the Power Cube that are usually out of the community's hands. Along with this, social workers often hold the power for access to resources and are the gatekeepers or gate openers for this community. This power is seen on the Power Cube as invisible and invited, as these employers are deemed expert to make these decisions behind closed doors. We believe that's important to consider non-exploitative practices, recognize and be aware of trauma, resiliency, adaptive measures such as acculturation, and while leaving the community, you should share results and allow projects to be adopted by communities. Through the community being involved with the results, we would hope for visible and claimed spaces in relation to the Power Cube that exist on local, national, and global levels.
What does this community have to offer us? What assets have you mapped that makes this community strong?
Thank you, Sharks, for your great question. We have created Culture the Gathering, our app to support the community of adolescents ages 13 through 18 with mental health needs and who also have immigrant parents. We know that the tools to meet these needs already exist. The challenge is for the community members to connect so that they can use their skills and their talents to support one another. McKnight and Kresman of the Center for Urban Affairs and Policy Research tell us that there is a danger to think of these communities in terms of deficits or needs rather than their assets. We could spend an entire afternoon here, Sharks, enumerating the diverse talents and skills of this community. So I will name only a few. This community is multilingual. It is full of professors and scientists, full of dancers, musicians, mechanics, landscapers, people skilled in childcare, in healthcare, in sales. There is no skill this community doesn't have.
Along with this community has so many assets along the lines of community volunteer groups and networks, government and non-government organizations. Just to name a few that we found, there are the Coalition of Immigrant Mental Health, which is a collaborative community based and research informed initiative that is a partnership between immigrants, mental health practitioners, community organizers, researchers, and allies. They work to promote awareness of culturally appropriate mental health services, and the Immigrant Learning Center is another one that we found, which has gathered many resources to assist immigrant communities, including tangible support and emergency funding. The final one that we would like to talk about is Inclusive Therapists, which is another mental health program, and it's a justice movement pursuing equity and liberation through education, collective care, and activism.
Another asset that our community has to offer is stories. We know that through Humans of New York, if you're familiar with that, there was a lot of value that came from hearing the stories of individuals that were basically anyone in New York. And our app will offer that as well, where we have stories from immigrants. And we really want to stress the idea that stories are important, they have value, and it's not just like articles written or whatever that has like research value. People can use these stories through Culture the Gathering to complete their research and learn more about this community, which will add value to our country as a whole, to be honest.
So, part of my investment strategy is to invest strategically in products that give back to the community. Tell me about how you use a non exploitive process in the development of Culture the Gathering.
We here at Culture the Gathering know that community members are the experts in their own experience. They're experts in their own needs and have identified so many solutions to their challenges. While we here at Culture the Gathering share identities with this community, we also recognize that we must ground our work in a culturally humble stance. In our research to build Culture the Gathering, we used 4 principles: disclosure with the community about who we are, our competencies, what we will do with information that we gather from them, and why we are gathering the information. We worked on the foundation of consent of all parties. We shared with them our value of confidentiality for their identities, including immigration status and information not relevant to our development of our app, as well as our mandated reporter status, because we want to protect the most vulnerable members of this community. Finally, we are committed to sharing results, particularly through the development of Culture the Gathering. And we know that everyone who we've worked with in this process will have access to try out this app because we will be offering it for free through Google Play and the iStore.
How can we trust the information you are providing? I'm not familiar with this research you're sharing. How can we know it's not biased?
That is a really great question. I understand that it can be scary to trust information. So we want to assure you that as we built our app, we used government data, organizations that are involved directly with the population we are talking about, peer-reviewed articles, and resources given to us from our DU professors that guided our research. We were sure to use recently published articles, and we critically analyzed each piece in order to determine potential bias, and our research depended on a diverse group of authors that helped guide us away from white privilege and white supremacy.
Carly, Carolyn, Raimundo. When I'm looking to invest, I am looking for outside of the box thinking. And you have shown that in abundance. You should be very proud. But I have no experience in tech startup. So for that reason, I'm out.
You are all too emotionally invested in this project to see that there is no profit. I can't do business with dreamers. And another thing, Culture the Gathering is a terrible name for this app. For that reason, I'm out.
You know, this app of yours seems to be a really cute idea, but I'm already invested in Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So for that reason, I'm out.
Geez, you know, those sharks and their white supremacist thinking just made me feel so small.
I know, but if they don't value our values of dignity and worth of a person, if they don't see the importance of human relationships, then they don't deserve us.
You're right. We're here trying to bring our social work values of fighting social injustice to the community based on the strengths of the community, and they don't respect that. I don't think we should let that stop us.
Yeah, let's start from the ground up, just like any other great American story. Besides, our whole model is based on locality development, right? So we don't need any big businesses helping us out.
You're right. We got this, team.
Yeah.
Yeah.